Hey, church, thanks for joining us again this Sunday morning. This is the first Sunday in October. And as I told you before, we are in this series of sermons in the Psalms. And today we're doing another psalm. It's Psalm 46. And I've titled this psalm Good News for Bad Days just because of the content. And as we get into it, I hope that it will be as beneficial to you as it was to me this week. Last year, Reader's Digest asked parents, teachers, and librarians and compiled bestseller lists to come up with the best children's books ever written. Any parent or grandparent has absolutely or probably read every book on the list at least once, and some too many to count. So today I want to give you just a sampling, and let's see if you can relate. Titles like Good Night Moon, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, Green Eggs and Ham, which of course is the classic Dr. Seuss. Where the Wild Things Are, Where the Sidewalk Ends, some great poetry by Shel Silverstein. Charlotte's Web, and of course The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was one of C.S. Lewis's greatest fiction works. These titles are full of whimsy, intrigue, humor, and timeless lessons. But the one book, there's one book that made the list that we can all relate to. Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, Not Good, Very Bad Day. Alexander was a boy about 7 or 8 years old, and he had one of those days when everything went wrong. Disasters, one right after another. Nothing went right. It was a terrible, horrible, not good, very bad day. For instance, when Alexander woke up in the morning, he discovered that he had gone to bed with gum in his mouth, and when he awoke, it was in his hair. When he got out of bed, he tripped over his skateboard, and then he dropped his sweater into the sink where the water was running. And he said, I just knew it was going to be a terrible, horrible, not good, very bad day. He went to school, and he had a horrible day there, too. After school, he had a terrible experience at the dentist's office. And then came supper, and he said, we had cauliflower for supper, and I hate cauliflower. And on TV, all I saw was hugging and kissing. And I hate hugging and kissing. My bath water was too hot, and I got soap in my eyes, and I lost my marble down the drain. When I went to bed, Nick took back the pillow that he said I could have, and my Mickey Mouse nightlight burned out, and I bit my tongue, and the cat decided to sleep with Nick and not with me. All in all, he said, it was a terrible, horrible, not good, very bad day. Now, is it any wonder that when Alexander finally came to the end of that day, he heaved a sigh and cried, I think I'll run away to Australia. All of us have had, will have, and may be having a terrible, horrible, not good, very bad day. This year could probably be named the terrible, horrible, not good, very bad year. And so I think Psalm 46 was written for just such a day or a year. Let's read it together. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change, and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains quake at its swelling pride. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy dwelling place of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, she will not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations made an uproar. The kingdoms tottered. He raised his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has wrought desolations in the earth. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariots with fire. Cease striving, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Thomas Hobbes of the University of Washington, along with several fellow sociologists, published their research on human stress. They listed many of the common experiences of life, evaluated their impact on our mental and emotional well-being, and then rated them according to the stress they produced in our lives. This stress rating was expressed in what they called life change units, or LCUs. The worse the stress rating, the higher the LCUs. So here's a sampling. Getting a divorce is 73 LCUs. Being pregnant is 40 LCUs. Remodeling a home is 25 LCUs. The stress of Christmas is rated at 13 LCUs. And so they compiled their list of life stresses, each one rated in LCUs. And their conclusion was, if within a year's time, a person experiences a cumulative total of more than 300 life change units, there is an increased possibility of a physical, mental, or emotional breakdown. So I want you to think about that and then put yourself in this scenario. You have a relative that openly opposes and rebels against the leader of your country. He mounts a coup to overthrow the government. And not only is he gathering a resistance, but he has persuaded two influential religious leaders to join you. They've gone out and rallied another 250 leaders from your country, men of reputation and persuasion, to grumble against your appointed leader. And when they come before that leader, all of a sudden the ground opens up and swallows them and all they possess. And as the ground is closing up around them, fire comes from nowhere and consumes the 250 men of reputation. I think at that point your LCUs would be off the chart. But that's what happened to the sons of Korah in Numbers 16. And then in Numbers 26, God commands Moses to take a census of the men 20 years and older. And in that chapter, there's a brief recounting of Numbers 16 with this side note. The sons of Korah, however, did not die. Now, the sons of Korah came away from this experience with a different view of God. And they penned almost a dozen psalms, giving us some of the most expressive, passionate, and moving psalms we read. How should we love God? Psalm 42. The sons of Korah wrote it. As the deer pants for the water brooks, so my soul pants for you, O Lord. Where do we go in times of despair? Psalm 43. Hope in God. Where do we go when our world is falling apart? Psalm 46. Because the sons of Korah realized something and penned these psalms for us today, and they realized that God is our refuge and strength. Not our government, or our friends, or even ourselves. God alone is our all in all. All other refuges are refuges of lies. All other strength is weakness, because power belongs to God, and that's what this psalm teaches us. He has been tried and proved by his people. He never withdraws himself from his afflicted. He is our help effectually and constantly. As believers, our refuge, our only impregnable, accessible place of retreat is God. Our strength, our all-sufficient, incomparable stronghold is God. Our help, our always near, faithful relief is God. And we know that in the history of this world, nations have made an uproar and kingdoms have tottered. The Council on Foreign Relations and its global conflict tracker is watching 27 current countries in turmoil in our world. Some of them have been long-standing conflicts like Afghanistan, Syria, and Yemen. Next year, you may not realize it, but it's going to be 160 years since our own civil war. When this psalm was written, Jerusalem was again under siege. Now, Jerusalem is one of the few ancient cities that's not built on a river. And so we look at this text and we see that it says in verse 4 that there's a river whose streams make glad the city of God. That's Jerusalem. But there was no river anywhere near the city of Jerusalem. When Sennacherib attacked Jerusalem, he thought their lack of water would drive them to surrender. But unknown to Sennacherib, Jerusalem had a source of water. King Hezekiah had built an underground tunnel which secretly brought water 1,777 feet through solid rock from the spring of Gihon to the pool of Siloam. That little stream supplied all their needs during the siege. But the sons of Korah remind the people and us that it isn't the river that sustains them. It's God. He is the living water who alone can quench our spiritual thirst. He is the God who is powerful enough to subdue the uproar of the nations by simply raising his voice. I remember that great hymn, "A mighty fortress is our God." And then verses 8 through 11 finish this psalm by telling us how to let go and let God. We all face stressful situations from, minor annoyances like traffic. We've all been there where we're just irritated by how long it takes us, let's say, to get from one end of university to the other end of university. To those more serious worries, a life-threatening illness. But no matter what the cause, stress floods our body with hormones. Our hearts pound, our breathing speeds up, our muscles tense. Most of us scramble and fuss and barely make it each day with our sanity intact. And so we come to this psalm and the end of it and the conclusion of the sons of Korah as they had witnessed this incredible discipline of God and his people. And they tell us this. They tell us to cease striving. To be still or to cease striving means to let go, relax. I wonder this morning, when was the last time we relaxed before God? Through the landscape and history of time, God continues to show his works. He is the God who made the world and all things in it. He gives to all people life and breath in all things, having determined our appointed times and the boundaries of our habitation, that we should seek him and find him. Take a look at Acts chapter 17, and you'll see there that great sermon that Paul preaches to the Gentiles in Athens and the things that he tells them there. And so we come to the end of this sermon, and we're now into October, and 2020 is beginning to wind down, and yet here we are, and this year has been hard. Wildfires, hurricanes, hundreds of thousands dead from an ongoing pandemic. And our government is deadlocked and incapable of taking action against the economic, political, ecological, and medical devastation that threatens to engulf us. And even if we haven't been directly affected, we can relate to the face unwell emoji you just saw, with the suggested key words of, oh no, trouble, whoa, yikes. And so this is what Psalm 46 tells us. Psalm 46 tells us God is faithful. God is present. God is powerful. And that's good news for bad days.